Welcome to a new podcast that I am doing with Mark Jager. And obviously, we're going to start with Walking Dead #1. But I'll repeat, because I've talked about it a bunch of times. I have watched the Walking Dead TV show up until the little girl gets killed. And yes, that's like 10 seconds in. That's like 20 seconds. I couldn't take it. I actually turned it off, and it made me feel wrong in all the wrong ways. It's where Eric can't watch Breaking Bad. He ended up trying to watch Breaking Bad a bunch of times, and he just ended up saying that he doesn't like to watch something that makes him, feel dirty, feel bad. And that's kind of how The Walking Dead felt with me, that I just thought, yeah, kid gets killed. I understand it's zombie, whatever, but it just wasn't for me, and I never did go back.
Well, it's crazy to think that Eric, his feelings concerning the things he watches.
Yeah, I know. That's the weird thing. He'll watch these horror movies, but I guess when it's like, it is the idea, and he again, if I'm going to psychoanalyze him, he's had a lot of people in his life die from drugs, and I think that might be more of the case. But then again, he also wouldn't watch The Sopranos because he said the same thing about the mob. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess there's a lot of things. And I watched The Sopranos, but Walking Dead, I ended up not being a fan of even at the beginning, but I ended up reading the first 2 trades, and it was the first thing I read on, I believe it was Comixology, when I ended up getting that. It was either that or the library deal, but I ended up reading the first 2 trades and really, really enjoyed them, and I just, had other things to do. But what is your background?
Well, yeah,
with
my
the
experience
Dead?
with this is quite different because I actually, until this colored version came out, I didn't really read much of any of The Walking Dead, but I did watch like the first 6 seasons of the TV series. Now, for me, I'm not a guy who seeks out zombie stories. I don't really care, but when I do read or watch something about zombies, I actually tend to enjoy it, which is kind of funny.
But you just don't seek it out, but you enjoy it when you get it.
I enjoy it when I get it, so that works.
That's good. Well, it's the idea too, which it can't be left unsaid here. When this came out, and it did come out on October 8th, 2003, and I will tell you, the estimated sales when it originally came out was 7,266. Not much at all. It was about to, be a craze in them once the television show, especially. Eric has gone on record that in 2003, he had told his comic shop owner, who was going to give him 5 free copies of the #1 issue.
God.
He turned it down and said, the zombie craze is over. That's his famous line, because it ended up where his buddy Tony, who had the shop, couldn't sell these. Nobody bought them there in our town.
Crazy.
So they ended up, he could have had 5 already bagged and boarded. He would have just put them away. And he said, the zombie craze is over. And this was a thing, and I'll bring it up a lot. Because if Eric ever says, like, he's the authority of something, I will bring up that the zombie craze was over in 2003, according to him. But the thing is and I even was telling Logan this before we recorded, the idea of a craze isn't when the fans of that genre like it. A craze is when mothers and grandmothers are talking about it. And that's what happened when the TV show All That hit, and Eric is a big dummy. And also, I will point out, too, because we're going to be talking about the colored version of this, he also said nobody wants to read black and white. That was his other thing. It was black and white, zombies, zombie craze is over, black and white's nonsense, boom, out. Didn't get those issues and has regretted it since.
Okay, so
really has.
Eric is a visionary like Bill Gates, who said at the beginning, the internet's a fad. We're not going to mess with that.
Yeah, we're not going to mess with that. That's a fad that'll come and go. Nobody wants to take the time to look at encyclopedia entries. So yeah, he ends up doing that. Now, there are a bunch of different editions of The Walking Dead. You had that original one, October 8th, 2003. Then you had a full color version in October 9th, 2013. And I think that people don't realize that they did have a full color deal, not this deluxe version, but a different. Then they had an AP edition in 2015. And now this was an issue that came out October 7th, 2020, the deluxe deal. So it just started coming out. And I saw people, trying to be pretentious on the old Twitter saying, I would never read it in color. Yeah, my goodness. Now, I said, to me, having read the first 2 trades, like I said, I really enjoyed them. I can go back and read the black and white again, but I like this idea of it coming out to kind of, get people, oh man, I'll check that out again. Or maybe some people who never did, that only did end up watching the television show. Because Eric is right, though, for one thing. A lot of people will not read black and white comics, which is a shame, because a lot of times the art actually does really stand out in a different way. Black and white, just pencils and ink. So that is a pretty cool deal.
You got a good point here, because with this new edition coming out, it is like the perfect jumping on point, because once I watched the TV series, I thought, wow, this Walking Dead is really well done. And I realized, but since I'm basically watching the comic, I'm not going to bother reading all those graphic novels.
I love, and that's why I love the idea that they didn't just say, okay, here's the deluxe trade color. I like actually that it's coming out one issue at a time, where you can just kind of collect it as you would have back in the day.
Yeah, that's a pretty savvy move. I like
it is. I think that is a really good move. Also, just the idea of it being, and I think they probably went with that. You know what? This whole zombie thing and how kind of is like in the headlines again with the shutdown. So let's just go all out. Yeah, and I think that it's well done. And I give kudos to Dave McKeag, who does the colors. They're really, really good. And I saw some people even said, like, it's not my thing. I'm pretentious. But the colors are really good. And it's created and written by Robert Kirkman. I think everybody would know. Then a lot of people like Jay from Canada against Robert Kirkman, because he's come out and said that, the big 2 are nonsense. It's the same thing. I mean, everybody, it's like, it's this whole Alan Moore deal again, right? Where he's, superhero comics. And I was talking to Jay from Canada, and he's like, I don't like that he said, like, superheroes are played out, whatever. I'm like, I don't know. I'm reading a lot of this shit that does seem played out. So somebody has to prove me wrong here. But it's also with pencils and inks by Tony Moore, and then Dave McKeag on the deluxe colors here. And you go into this, and there are differences if you did watch the TV show from the comic. I've been told mainly, there's some switcheroos and things like that. But you do start off with Rick Grimes. He's there, and he does end up getting shot. He's there with Shane, his partner, and gets shot by Reggie, who then puts him into a coma. And it's very quick. I mean, you were there on one page. You have this, I ain't going back. I'll die first. And you end up having Rick get shot. And pretty bad, too. I mean, you see the exit there.
I thought he looks like he's dead. And this is just the coldest of cold opens that they're doing here. I'm like, did I miss a page? What am I doing?
Because they are at a standoff. And I really like the way that they play this out, because as you're trying to get your grip on what's going on, you end up having Rick just wake up in the hospital room. He gasps, he wakes up. Nobody's there. And you get that right away. Yeah, really. I wish you had a Rip Van Winkle beard, but you realize that things are bad even before you realize they're real bad, is when he's the one taking, the IVs out. Then he falls. He's trying to get a hold of a nurse. Nobody is getting back. He goes in and gets his stuff that's there in a cabinet. Gets dressed and walks out, and everybody's gone. Everybody's gone.
I have to actually say, I mean, I really like how he tells this story, but there's a part of me that is thinking, come on, seriously, you've been in a coma for at least a month. You kind of get out of bed, get dressed, and go walking down the hallway.
And just walk. Yeah, you're not going to be able. Now he is leaning at one point. He's leaning against the wall, but then he's pretty good, really quick. And his legs. He would probably fall down a bunch of times here. And he goes and he's like, everybody must be on break or something at the same time. That's weird. He's trying to figure out what's going on, and that's when you see the first big deal where he gets in the elevator, he goes, and all of a sudden the elevator opens and a zombie just falls and he's like, holy crap. And you end up, he's screaming, he's yelling, somebody help, runs down or at least walks in. And I'll give him that. He is walking at this point. Like, he probably wants to run, but you do get that idea that he's kind of walking, but he gets to the door and it's barricaded with, a board through the deal.
The dude is totally in shock at this point, right?
Oh, yeah,
and, he's probably trying to get it all together here, so...
Now he's really going to be in shock. Because, I
love how they show the zombies like this. It's not really predictable too much when all of a sudden, here they are.
And there they are. And when he opens up that door, the whole room is filled with zombies eating each other, doing all that in a non-sexy way. But I think that this is the first point here, obviously, where maybe the exit wound from Rick getting shot, having the blood, the red deal, but when you see the zombies here, this is like the first time you're like, oh yeah, this is in color. Like you haven't. It's not. Yeah. Dave McKeag is not going over the top, and that's why I think I like it. It's not popping colors. Like you're not getting day glow nonsense here. It's still a darker deal, and it's really good. And especially you have that with that main zombie right in the foreground where you have it. His shirt, it's like the blood is not bright. This is old. He's been a zombie for a while. Everything is dark and rotting and things like that. And I really do like it. And Rick freaks out and they start coming after him and he falls back and he ends up going. But you see that these zombies, and when the guy ends up falling down the stairs with Rick and his neck kind of gets snapped open, there's maggots. It's just disgusting.
So gross. But
so disgusting.
It's
right?
a happy accident, right? Otherwise, Rick is dead.
He's done. And then he's smart. He ends up closing the door with his belt. I never would have thought of that. I never would think of using a belt to strap a door. And then he goes to get in the car. The car's all messed up. And this is where, you're watching it in the original deal. And I'm like, well, was he in a coma for like 7 years? I mean, this car looks like it's been through hell and back again in the little bit of time.
It is kind of crazy how you look like the lawn in front of the hospital is like 2 feet tall already.
Yeah, it's crazy. And he does walk from the hospital. He's still trying to figure out what's going on. And he ends up going past a car wreck. There's a body coming out, but then the big deal is here when he sees a bike. And he looks, and the problem is this is a kid, but you can't tell that. And it did throw me off even originally when I first, it's a biker, but then everything I read keeps pushing the idea that it's a kid, and kind of going with the idea of in the TV show when they do shoot that little girl, this is kind of the deal because by the end, spoiler, he comes back to put this kid out of its misery. Because he gets the bike. He has to get to his house. He gets the bike and drives. And then, like you said, he's in shock. And then it kind of comes all to the, his deal where he just drops and starts crying in the middle of the road.
It's such great storytelling because Kirkman is constantly showing the emotion that, Rick is feeling. Because can you imagine this crazy end-of-the-world scenario that you're just dumped into? And you're not just going to go, oh, fiddle-dee-dee. You're just going to see shit and be like, oh, what am I witnessing? And then it just kind of comes pouring out of you.
Yeah, and you'd be overwhelmed at that point.
Exactly,
you really
and
would
there's no dialogue here either. It's not like he's having to do this outer dialogue to explain what's going on.
And that is really good point because a lot of times writers nowadays especially would have had him talking to himself the whole time and it wouldn't have felt right. Whether it felt right or not, you wouldn't get the emotions of kind of being there. When Rick sees this zombie there, who can't move, legs shattered, still alive though, not even really any innards, and gets the bike, goes off, cries when he sees this. But you also, as it goes forward, you're also going to realize too that he's going to find his wife and kid, and so seeing this, you can only think that he's wondering what might have happened to his family as well, because he doesn't know what's happened. And like you said, this is overwhelming. This is one of those things where, hopefully people don't know what that is all about, where at one point you just can't, you have to start just crying. You just fall down and start crying because everything is just so overwhelming. But he gets up and he goes back to us. And I'm telling you, this neighborhood is just everything is destroyed. And he gets to his house and he's trying to get in. He goes in to see everybody's gone, and even with that, still no real dialogue. He just son of a bitch. He goes in, nothing. Everything's looted. He goes and he's looking around to see if maybe he can find somebody. That's when he gets hit in the back of the head with a shovel, and it's so funny when that happens.
Yeah, well, this is like Castaway in the South. Where he finds his purpose, he finds his mission, and so that's what's really driving him through here and keeping him alive, really. And like you say, then just it's always that last panel on the page where all of a sudden you see, oh crap, what's happening now?
Yeah, and he gets hit in the head, and it's from Dwayne, a little kid. And he's like, Daddy, I got one. And it's funny because Dwayne just, he doesn't know. And really, how would he know if Rick is a zombie or not? You can't sit and think about it too long or you're going to be dead. But I even like how Dwayne, he's so excited. Like, Daddy, I did it. And this dad, Morgan, comes over and he's like, that's not one of them. That's one. He's alive. Let's go and take him in. And like you said, just the emotions of those panels where you have, Dad, look, he was going to eat us. He was going to eat us, Dad. And he's like all like mean looking little kid. And then all of a sudden when his dad says, no, son, this man is alive. He looks so sad. He's like, like he done messed up. But
it's very expressive, these drawings. And actually what I'll call out again, it's similar to him waking up from a coma and walking down the hallway. He gets nailed on the back of the head with a shovel. And just walk it off.
and here's the thing. I don't know if everybody listening has been knocked out. Like being knocked out, you don't just jump back up. And I've been knocked out twice in my life, both playing hockey. And I woke up, again, concussion. I ended up throwing up for a week at one of them. It was really bad.
That's a bad one.
And that was just me basically getting hit. And then, hitting the ice back of my head. And, this is a shovel, though. I mean, there's no way that you're going to get up and like, hey, what happened? Hey, dinner time. But that's kind of, you push it forward with that. But I like this idea of, again, we don't know what's happening. Now we know. And it's kind of a shame because even without watching the TV show, I know the concept. But when you're reading this, you don't. You have no idea what's going on. All of a sudden, there's a guy and his son. He gets hit. Rick gets hit with a shovel. We don't even really know much about Rick at this point. We don't even know his name. He ends up. We finally get the name when he introduces himself to Morgan. But he's a cop. We saw at the beginning. But we're still. This is like a whole cold open half an issue, and he kind of comes to, and they start talking, and it's funny too because I really needed Morgan at one point because Rick keeps going with the idea, hey, sorry, I'm living in your neighbor's house, Rick. Oh, when all this is said and done, as long as you give it up. Hey, he gives him the cop car. Whenever this is done, and I want Morgan to say, dude, this stuff isn't going to be done. Like we can kind of tell already that shit is gone real wrong, but Rick doesn't know that yet, and Rick just seems to think it's like, hey, everybody got a little sick and headed to Atlanta.
It's fascinating. He wrote this so long ago, yet this pretty much mirrors like my experience when this pandemic hit this year. It's like, I was going to concerts in January going, it'll pass, whatever. Then February gets serious. And then in March, they're like, okay, everybody, we're going to try working from home for like a week or two. And I'm like, okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And, now my office is closed. It's not opening again. I'm working from home full time. And I just think back to all those things I thought we could do. Well, okay, our trip to such and such, we'll just have to postpone it, I guess, for a month. No, dude, stuff's going to be shut down for 2 years.
Here's the deal. I was laid off in March. I have not seen Eric physically since March. We talk all the time. I have not seen him in person. I don't even, we used to even like talk the Patreon deal and stuff like that. I do that just electronically now, so I don't have to see his ass. But yeah, that's the thing. I haven't seen him in what will be, more than half a year already. And, so when Rick's there, like, it'll be fine. We'll get over this one. And it's just the idea, well, you have a cop car, but turn it in when we're done. Don't put too many miles on. I'm like, you're worried about the miles. Like, even if it does get back to normal,
dude, when you return it.
Yeah, really. Like, really? Make sure there's a full tank of gas. But yeah, so Rick, he kind of is getting the idea. You don't get a full deal, but you end up where, electricity, internet, everything went down. The news went down. And then when they came back, they said, everybody get to the cities. We can protect. The zombies showed up. And this is where, you're going to learn the rules of the zombies. And it's nothing that's anything out of the ordinary. You shoot them in the head. You hit them in the head, they're
Simple as
dead.
that.
And I think that is a good thing. Robert Kirkman could have done some like crazy deal. Well, these are this kind, and I can change that up. But that's the classic. That's the trope. And it's easy to know and remember. So you have that. And I really like it at this point where you end up having Morgan. They go to the police station. Rick goes in there. He gets guns for them, says this will be better than shovels. It'll take less effort, all that. And it's really good. And Rick is really, hooking Dwayne and Morgan up here. You see Dwayne like, I want to shoot right now. No, I'll teach you tomorrow, buddy. And I'm like, ooh, I hope he doesn't shoot his head off. But you end up where they see a zombie on the other side of a fence. And Rick freaks out. And this is, again, the last kind of zombies that were up and about like that were in the hospital when they were out to get him. And he's about to shoot it. And Morgan says, no. You don't need to shoot that one. He's not going to hurt us. He's behind the fence. Don't waste the bullet. And I really like the line. You may need that bullet later. That one bullet you may need. And he says, okay, thank you. I agree. And goes right to that kid because that is haunting him still. The idea that this zombie there with the bike, and he goes, and it like right there shows you that, okay, I understand not to waste. This is not a wasted bullet in his mind. And you have this thing and it's not even like it can't do anything, no harm, but it's not dying. Exactly. And that, I think that where Rick's like, that is just hell. It's just
it's
there.
a good indicative of the police character because you get into that job because you're looking to help people. And, he's got some real empathy. And that's why, I got to go back and just put a bullet in the head of that kid on the bike. And I'm just going to do all these things. And he's really concerned for people. And so he turns out to be a great leader by doing that.
And he says to Morgan, like, because you don't have to do this stuff. I mean, man, you're going to. He's like, no. I'm a police officer. I serve and protect. And what better way to do that now to hook you up? He also ends up getting his spare, uniform and says where I'm going. And I'm going to go to Atlanta because he says my in-laws are from Atlanta. I'm sure that my wife and kid, they ended up trying to get there. It's 5 hours away. I'm going to take the cop car. Plus, I'm going to have my uniform so that they see I'm a cop and everything will be fine.
But
it's
that's
not
a good detail there,
but it is a detail, yeah. You know what else I really thought was a good detail? Was that zombie that's it's at the fence, right? And don't bother. He's not. When Rick drives away, the zombie does turn around to watch the car go off. So you get the idea, okay, these aren't things that just can't, like, you almost get the idea this zombie was like an old video game glitch that's just walking against the, the fence. And it's not, I can't go forward, so I don't, but no. It turned around and goes. But that's the thing. And this is the stuff with that Firepower by Robert Kirkman. He writes great dialogue in my mind, but also what he does is he thinks out the situation in all the comics I've read by him where you see these little details that just kind of pop up that you're like, boy, that's a really good way to show that. And that's a really good way. Like you said, it is a little off that he woke up from the coma and wasn't at least crawling or trying to get his, legs from being asleep and things like that. But you kind of have to move.
Yeah, what's funny is if this is a brand new comic, nobody's going to sit here and watch 3 issues of him rehabbing himself to go back out into the world.
No. And really, that's kind of what I'm against with a lot of new cut. Like Brian Michael Bendis, this issue would have been 10 issues. I mean, it really would have been. And I like where you're going to cut the corners, cut them in the ways that benefit the book. And yes, going and seeing the zombies. Now, if all of a sudden he was karate chopping and roundhousing zombies, then I'd be like, you know what? That's a little off. But he is just trying to escape, doesn't know what's going on. And you said it before. You get that overwhelming fear and horror that Rick is going through as he's trying to get his things. But once he gets the idea of what's going on and figures that his wife and kid are in Atlanta, he has a purpose now. Boom. He's going to go there. And it does seem at the end, kill that kid and head off to Atlanta in a cop car. You think, oh, it's only a couple hours. There's nobody on the road. Like, this should be pretty easy. He'll be able to get there. Like, this will be like done in, what is this, a 4-issue mini? But yeah, and I will tell you at the end, they have the letters page. It's the letter hacks. These letters aren't from the original issue. So if you go and he ends up saying this, but there are spoilers in these letters if you had just come in and didn't. So don't read those if you have not read the whole deal and all that, because what's funny too is, if you remember, it was a surprise ending when the Walking Dead just ended. They came out with that issue and it's boom, it's done.
It's like 193 or something.
Yeah, it was a weird whole deal.
So strange.
And it was strange, and it just boom, it's done. And so going back to this, I might guess maybe when we get to the end again, maybe they'll start up something new then, because that'll be a while from now.
Yeah,
but it'd be that little interlude to then maybe go forward if, this does well. And I don't know how well, this will do, but it's well done. And I think it's cool enough that I actually wouldn't mind if I went to the comic shop. I think I would pick these up. I think that it's a really cool concept. It's a really neat idea to maybe have these, or when they come out in this deluxe trade, have that with the original, trade, and you kind of have both, because it's really well done.
Yeah, I like this because that's some of the trouble I have sometimes with, like, let's say Netflix, where they just drop like an entire season on you all at once. And it's kind of cool when you can go like as The Boys on Amazon are coming out week by week, to be able to chat with people about, man, did you check out that one thing? Hey, and I think this is what's coming up. So, and I really like, I just want to say, I like the fact that they've colored this, because I do like the original black and white issues. Those, I really like that. But if you move to these color issues, it really pops. So what's interesting is when you get towards the end, when he goes back to shoot the, kid with a bike, you see this tear running down his face. And if you look in the original black and white version, I don't get that that's a tear because it's black and white. But you see the blue little just slightly blue streak running down. And it is so powerful to me to see it so clearly. And he does such a good job here where I don't need dialogue. I'm going to let this art just yell at you at what's going on. It's incredible. So can you tell I like it?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. and again, I said at the point where you have that exit wound from Rick, and yeah, you see it originally, but it's, the black. When you see that bright red, you're like, holy crap,
man.
He shouldn't be living. I mean, he should be dead himself. And it's just the idea, too, of that concept. And again, it's like the zombie version of like Planet of the Apes. And there's been a lot of stories like that where the people are out of commission for a while, and then when they come back, shit has gone wrong, and they have to figure out what's going on. And I like the idea of this, where our main character, what better way to get it on board as right with the character? He doesn't know what went on because he was in a coma. And you might, it was Earth all along. What have you done? We could have the Charlton Heston deal, but that's why that's such a important moment in there, and such a big moment, because we didn't know as well. We're going along, oh my God, they must have crashed on another planet. This Planet of the Apes, oh my God, it was Earth, because they were like out and about.
You're in the story. You're watching kind of yourself.
You feel like you're mad too. You're like, you damn people, you get your hands off me, you dirty ape. Like that. Eric loves the Planet of the Apes so much. But yeah, so I love that concept of, a person who doesn't know what's going on, and how else can you do that with what seems to be a worldwide pandemic, where all of a sudden, it would be really back in the deal, shout out to my man Reggie, when he came out of his coma, when he ended up having his first, and I told him that Tom King had been kicked off of Batman. It was like, he thought I was lying. He actually was like, no way. And we had such a good time talking about that because he was out. But yeah, this really is a good start. And it really is a good way to kind of get you on board. And you get a lot about Rick from just his actions and his expressions and
the
things like that.
The expressions are so good, because especially on Morgan, when he's talking to Morgan will give these responses, and half of what you're getting out of his response is the look on his face, especially when he's talking about looking for his wife and son, and Morgan says, oh yeah, I'm sure they're fine. And the look on his face is just nothing but side eye.
Yes, yeah, like, yeah. And that is when he says that, that's a big moment. But I also like the idea, too. It's like there's Morgan there with his son, and they've had to go through hell now. So it's not this like, well, this happened at this hour, and then we went there and went there. This is just a guy who's fighting for his life to keep his son alive as well. And I don't really think he wants to really go into that much detail about the shit that they've gone through. So he gives them the basic deal because that's what you do. Now, if they were going to stay together and Rick's like, well, I'm going to stay. Hopefully maybe you'd get more out of him or whatever. But, they're already there, PTSD through the wazoo, I'm sure. And he's just trying to keep his son positive and keep going. So he's not just going to sit there and talk about it like it was like a vacation. Like, oh, man, you should have seen it. No. He just told them what the deal was and how they're, going to go. And he's just worried that Rick might be upset about it because that would be in your mind. Like, here I am, I'm squatting in somebody's house. Yeah, shit has hit the fan, but I really don't want to have to fight people that are living as well. And so when he says to you think they mind? Oh, he won't mind, as long as you give it up at the end. And I think, there ain't going to be no end. Plus, they'll probably move on from there anyway. Yeah. This is one of those things. And you got to think of like the shit they went through just to be the only ones left on the block and things like that. And I like it, too, because you have Rick. He doesn't even get into like, oh, where were you from and all, because you really don't, he just wants to get the fuck to Atlanta and find his wife and kids. He's still in shock. So you're not having, campfire girls go round and round here. You're not making s'mores out back. Yeah. You just get the info and you get going. He's going to protect. And really, I think if Morgan didn't have Dwayne's son, I don't know how much Rick would have really, I think that also lent to him. Like, I really have to, hook these people up because definitely. That little kid. He's pretty tough, though. He hit him with that shovel.
Well, Morgan is like father of the year here. Because he's always keeping his head cool around, his son. Yeah. Here's the rifles. I'll teach you about these
tomorrow. It's like, we're going to learn real quick. But oh my goodness, it reminds me. I think it was it Planet Terror, the one deal where the lady gave the kid like, listen, if your daddy comes, he's a zombie now, and then the kid shot himself like 2 seconds later. I think it was the Robert Rodriguez deal. That was part of the Quentin Tarantino, that whole double feature deal. I don't even remember what the fuck it's called. But hey, there you go. Well, but what would you give this if you rated it?
I'm easily at a 9 for this thing.
Yeah, I'm a 9. I'm a 9 out of 10. I really liked it. I thought it was really cool.
And it kind of helps that I already know that the things he's laying out here, he has a clear plan and he's going to execute on it pretty darn well. So, I didn't really compare this too much to, the TV series, but one thing I do need to call out is I actually way prefer the comic book or the TV series when it comes to the action of the zombies, because I kept losing my mind in the TV series where someone will be all by themselves and then all of a sudden they turn around and here's a zombie on top of them. And I'm like, you couldn't hear them from a mile away for the last 5 minutes?
They weren't facing that way. It's like Resident Evil. You have to turn like the tank controls really quietly around. Yes. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. So if we end up wanting to go on with this, I am certainly down with that. Like I said, I'm not going to say it's officially like twice a month, once a month, whatever. We'll do it when we have the time and see if people enjoy it and do it like that.
Sounds good.
Sounds good? Yeah. All right. Well, that's what we'll do. Thank you for joining me, Mark. I hope everybody did enjoy this. We're calling it, the Walking Dead Wednesdays for now. But hey, thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you later.